Maybe you've had one of those moments where you're sitting there, staring out into the distance, wondering what on earth you're supposed to do next. There might be a lot of things happening in your life, but somehow you feel disconnected, lost, swept up in it all and dragged along with the tide. Maybe you've just been through a dramatic event in your life, a big breakup, getting fired from your dream job, dropping out of university, getting seriously injured. Maybe you've moved to a new city for the first time and had to start completely from scratch. Maybe you've taken your first full-time job and realized it wasn't what you expected. Maybe you've just finished reading a really good book and it's flipped your entire world upside down. It's in moments like these that we can feel kind of lost. We can feel like we don't know what we should do or where we should be going next. More than this, we can feel like we're not even connected to ourselves anymore. Who is this person that you've become? Who are they now that things are changing? What are they going to become? Back when I was a kid, I always dreamed of helping people. I wanted to be an inventor. I wanted to create machines and contraptions that would solve all the problems that people had. I wanted to work hard and create something that would change the world. So when I finished high school, I enrolled in a mechanical engineering degree, but I found myself studying in the middle of the Australian mining boom. And I felt like all we ever talked about was digging coal and minerals out of the ground with big, boring, heavy machinery. This wasn't creating new, exciting technology. This wasn't changing the world for the better. This wasn't what I'd come for. I came to feel that this wasn't where I wanted to go with my life. I wasn't happy. I felt like I was going down the wrong path. I wanted out, and so I walked away. And in truth, by this stage, I'd spiraled into a pretty deep depression. Often when we come to these big identity crisis moments, it can be hard to know who we are anymore. Feelings of shame and guilt well up inside of us, and we can feel completely trapped. But this isn't the end of the story. You see, as I recovered, I started to build a new life. I decided I would pursue my love and interest in audio and music. I moved to Melbourne, the arts capital of Australia, and I got near perfect grades in my audio engineering degree. I came home, I started a business with a friend, and I started living the life I finally wanted. And things were good for a while. Until all of a sudden, I started to feel like something was still missing. Something from all those years ago was going unaddressed. And so I found myself sitting at my desk one day, my morning coffee sitting untouched, and I stared out into the garden, thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing? I'd pushed so hard to get where I am today. I'd given up my engineering degree and my dreams of creating life-changing contraptions. And yet, why did I feel so lost? Why was I so unsatisfied? The truth is, that little kid who wanted to create things that changed the world was still in there. I'd committed to one path, but I found myself longing for another. This was my quarter-life crisis. What's been popularized as the quarter-life crisis is just one of many identity crises that we commonly experience in our lives. Essentially, this is the part of your life where you're striking it out in the world and establishing yourself as an adult for the first time. Generally, this period can be chaotic and sometimes quite lonely, as we struggle to navigate the new commitments and expectations of the new life we've found ourselves thrown into. So let's talk about identity crises, what they are, why they happen, and what we can do about them. The term identity crisis was first termed by a German psychoanalyst named Erik Erikson in a 1950 book called Childhood and Society. And in this book, he outlines how, starting with puberty, we all start to question the roles and values given to us by our parents and society. And so we start to explore and develop our own identities. This is that phase of your life where you got that awful haircut and wore all those incredibly cringy outfits. But the main point to take away from Erikson's original work is that although an identity crisis might be a difficult process to go through, it's a perfectly normal and healthy part of identity development. And each time we're forced to confront and make big decisions about our identity and who we want to be, we have to go through this identity crisis process. This is why the quarter-life crisis has become such a commonly known phenomenon. This part of our life regularly throws up new and difficult situations for us to navigate and overcome. The choices that we make at these critical decision points in our lives make a firm statement about who we are. And so our identities are called into question as we work out what we need to do next. And sometimes we find that we've made earlier decisions that no longer align with who we see ourselves now. And so the crisis to be resolved is whether we wish to cling to the old ways or make significant material change in our lives. So for me, the question was, do you want to keep growing that audio business with your friend? Or do you want to return to that dream of making life-changing contraptions? You can chase one, but not the other. And whichever choice you make will make a significant statement about who you are. So what do you do? Identity crises are totally normal and healthy processes that we all have to go through when our reality and identity come into conflict. And although these periods of crisis can be emotionally taxing and difficult, they're not a bad thing. And we all need to go through them to grow and reaffirm our own identities. However, to commit to our new identity moving forward, we need to make some decisions about what we believe in and what actions we need to take next. So how do we go through that process to actually reaffirm our identity and resolve this crisis? Well, that's where the work of a person called James Marcia comes in. Back in the 60s, Marcia developed a framework called the 4 identity statuses. And in this framework, the various aspects of your identity are measured in terms of exploration and commitment. Exploration refers to the extent to which you've explored possible alternatives and opportunities out there. For example, it's hard to say that you don't like tennis if you've never picked up a racket and played a game before. Beyond this, you might say that someone who played tennis for several years has explored that alternative more than someone who tried it half-heartedly for 5 minutes in a PE class in middle school. Exploration is critical to discovering new things about ourselves, and for reaffirming the things that we do and do not like. As we go through life, we're constantly experiencing these new things, and evaluating whether we want to continue engaging in them or not. As this happens, we might find that some event or experience poses a significant challenge to how we see ourselves and the choices that we've made in the past. Commitment, on the other hand, is a measure of how concrete we are in our beliefs about ourselves. In other words, how sure are we about who we are? Often, we're quite sure about some aspect of our identity until we experience something that shakes up our perspective, and then all of a sudden, we're not so sure anymore. In this critical moment where further exploration of our identity triggers us to feel less certain and less committed to our chosen identity, we enter the identity crisis process. So we've had something happen in our lives which has caused us to question some aspect of the question, who am I? And now we've got to do something about it. So, what happens next? Well, according to Marcia, there are multiple ways you can go, but the healthiest way to go about things is to enter a process he calls moratorium. Moratorium is just a fancy word that basically means to take a break or to put life on pause. In moratorium, we're in a state of high exploration but low commitment. This means that we're out there trying new things and seeing what fits, without any real commitment to one thing over the other. We're essentially trying to rediscover and reevaluate some part of our personality so that we can move forward with our lives. For example, something that you could explore doing right now is leaving a like on this video and subscribing to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. Cheers. So anyway, as we explore, we keep on trying on new identities until we find something that fits. As we explore further and further, we become more and more sure of our decision, and finally, we fully commit to that new path. In my case, this might mean dropping out of an engineering course to pursue one in the arts, and then, 7 or 8 years later, having explored the world of audio and the arts much further, deciding to leave that world and go back to studying an engineering course. Except this time, with a completely refreshed view on what I wanted and why I was doing it. So as you can probably see, this isn't always the most straightforward process, but rather one where we're continuously exploring and recommitting to different paths throughout our lives. On that note, I want to point out something that I personally found really difficult to swallow, because this exploration and commitment process is ongoing throughout your life. Sometimes you'll suddenly realize that you want to switch paths back to something that you'd moved away from some time ago. In these moments, it's easy to beat yourself up for making the wrong choice, or to feel like you've wasted a big chunk of time. But the truth of the matter is, you probably just needed that amount of time to further explore both options. And the most important thing is that you're willing to do the right thing for the person that you are right now, and to follow the path that most aligns with who you want to be today, not the person that you were 2, 3, or 10 years ago. It's okay to change your mind, and it's okay to grow and have new experiences that cause you to reevaluate and make different decisions. That's life. And that's why going through this process without any negative stigma is so important. Because we all need to go through it to become the fullest and best expressions of ourselves. So let's talk about getting there. After that moratorium phase, the ideal outcome is that we move into what Marcia calls identity achievement. This is a condition where we have both high levels of exploration and high levels of commitment. In other words, we've been through our identity crisis, evaluated and explored many options, and picked a new identity and path forward that aligns best with who we are in this moment. Identity achievement is often typified by a sense of cool, calm, and confidence. When we've really explored as much as we can, and we've been through the tough process of the identity crisis and committed to something new, we know that this aspect of our identity isn't under threat right now. Because we've already evaluated so many alternative options, people can say whatever they want. Life can throw up new challenges, but we won't waver in the face of adversity because we've already been tested and we're sure of our answer. And this is why the identity crisis process is so important and healthy. If we shy away from deeply exploring ourselves and our identity, if we avoid trying new and different things and genuinely challenging our perspectives and beliefs, then we can never attain identity achievement and experience that serene, unshakable confidence that comes from truly knowing and understanding who we are. The person who avoids exploring and challenging their beliefs becomes more anxious and defensive of their identity. They're actually quite unsure of themselves. They lack confidence. But the identity achievers, those who have put in the work, they don't have this problem. They're able to go forth and put their mark on the world, having already been through their own internal crisis and come out the other side. Okay, so someone who's reached identity achievement has explored deeply, and we see why this gives them confidence. But they're also highly committed. So does this just mean that they then become completely static in their identity? Well, they say that you can never step in the same river twice, because a river is always flowing and changing. People too are always changing. As we grow older and experience new things, invariably our perspectives and priorities change too. And so, as we change, we have to continuously renew our identities through further exploration and recommitment. This is why the identity crisis process is always happening. And the people who are able to take in new information and adjust their beliefs regularly are going to be the ones who are actually most secure in their identity. It's only when we've been clinging to some core part of ourselves for far longer than is useful, or when life throws a sudden and significant change at us, that we're thrown into a dramatic and difficult identity crisis. In these moments, when we're forced to reevaluate some significant core part of our identity, we can feel really lost and confused. When we have to reshape such a significant part of our identity, it's no wonder that we feel like we don't know who we are anymore. It's a difficult process, and it will take work. The first thing to know, though, is that you will be okay. These big crisis-causing events in our lives are often not within our control, and they can hit us out of nowhere. But if you understand that the identity crisis is a normal and healthy process, you can focus on doing the required exploratory work to reaffirm who you are without the extra emotional baggage of feeling like there's something wrong with you for having to go through this completely normal process. The second thing to know is that this is a difficult process for everyone, and that there are techniques and strategies that you can use to help yourself through these hard times. First of all, studies have shown a clear link between people's well-being during identity-disrupting events and the number of links that they have to different social groups. What this means is that it's not so much how strong your relationships are that matter during these difficult times, but the breadth and diversity of them. And so, while it can be tempting to isolate yourself and withdraw from the world during these difficult times, the research says that the best thing that we can do is get out there and spend time with as many different groups of friends and family that we can. One theory might be that spending your time with a variety of people who you can trust will expose you to new experiences, different perspectives, and new points of view that you can safely explore within yourself. And so, in doing so, you're able to work through your identity process in a safe and supportive environment, surrounded by friends and family. Going through tough times on your own makes them even tougher. So, call up that old friend and hang out for a bit. Go do something that you've never tried before, even if you just do it once. It'll help you feel better and work through these difficult times. Secondly, talking things out loud with someone has been shown to help us sort and organize information in our own brains, and to process that information more effectively. So, if you can, talk to someone about what you're going through. If you have access to a mental health professional like a counselor available, make a booking to talk things through with them. They're trained to listen to what you're going through and have been trained to help you unpack these difficult emotional processes that we have going on during an identity crisis. But if you don't have access to a mental health professional, try to find a trusted friend that you can just talk things out with in a safe and non-judgmental way. You might want to start the conversation by letting your friend know that you're not necessarily looking for advice and that you just want to talk things through with someone that you can trust to help you process everything that's going on internally. Finally, writing things down can really help you sort out what's going on in your head. Similar to talking things out with someone, writing things down in something like a journal forces your brain to begin to sort and process the information so that you can put it into coherent sentences. Writing about your feelings and thoughts for just a few minutes every day can really help to allow your brain to process and organize all this new information and changes that are going on in your world. Another benefit of organizing your thoughts and feelings in this way is that they'll start to feel less chaotic and overwhelming. And so writing these things down will help to reduce stress, anxiety, and other negative emotions that you might be feeling while going through this process. So even if you don't journal regularly, considering just writing down your thoughts when you're going through difficult times, I guarantee it will help. So what do you think? Have you been through a difficult quarter-life crisis of your own? How did you work through it? What else would you like to know about identity and how it evolves and changes over your life? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, please like the video if you found it useful to you. And hit the subscribe button if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.